Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to another episode of Quran in English. My name is Ahmad, and I'm happy to continue on to the second section of Surah Al Isra. We had a bit of an interesting passage last time. I was obviously saying a lot of things before I had read it properly, and it was interesting. Some of the things can hold true, some of the things can not. I am enjoying this narrative. Now, in this next section, we're going to get a lot of lessons and a lot of guidance from the Quran about what we should do and how we should conduct our affairs, what we should focus on. And I find it to be actually quite beautiful. But before we begin, I must always explain I am not a Quranic scholar, nor am I an Arabic linguist. I have not studied the Arabic language beyond school, nor have I studied the Quran. In fact, this is my first read through of the Quran for a lot of it. And I'm merely sharing my education journey with you in the hopes that you might learn something, but primarily so that I can learn something. If you find something that you disagree with or have a different perspective on, please feel free to drop a comment. I've been learning a lot from the comments. And I appreciate you, and I thank you for watching. And before we begin, we must always say, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. And off we go.
وقضى ربك ألا تعبدوا إلا إياه وبالوالدين إحسانا إما يبلغن عندك الكبر أحدهما أو كلاهما فلا تقل لهما أف ولا تنهرهما وقل لهما قولا كريما.
And now we see kind of one of the major lessons of the Quran. And it says, and it is decreed, your God has decreed that you do not worship except for Him alone. And then it says, and to the parents, do good, be good. Do right by your parents, honor your parents, be good to them. And that's kind of like a major lesson of the Quran, which is very, very beautiful and very, very sweet. And it says, whether they reach with you the old age, one of them or both of them, then do not say to them, uffin is like, it's a word of disrespect, but like it's specifically, it's like uff, like uff is an expression of frustration, of exhaustion. You're like uff, like it's a sign of disrespect. It's a sign of oh my God, like you're saying this, you're harping on me again. It's kind of like, it's very stubborn, obstinate to your parents. Ugh is kind of like the English version of it. Like, yeah, ugh is the English version. I just saw it now over here, which makes sense. So in Arabic, it's uff. In English, it's ugh. It's kind of like that indignation, that kind of like terrible. So don't tell them ugh, specifically as they get older, because then they start losing their faculties. They start getting a little bit more difficult to deal with. And this is also kind of a tough lesson, because sometimes parents have their faults, and sometimes people have difficult relationship with their parents. And the Quran is calling for kindness to them. Even if they are becoming old and senile, even if they are very difficult people. And it says, do not repel them, don't yell at them, don't repel them, don't exhaust them, and tell them and speak to them, a word of kindness, a word of nobility, a word of respect. Try to be as kind to your parents. We have to talk about difficult parents. Sometimes parents are difficult. Sometimes parents have their challenges, have their traumas that they haven't dealt with, and they have ways of dealing with us that are less than holy and less than great, because they are people too. We're all humans, and we're doing the best that we can, and we make mistakes. And when a parent makes a mistake with a child, it's always very difficult. Because usually in your childhood, that's when a lot of your psyche is formed. And if you have some trauma from your parents at a young age, it's very hard to live life. So sometimes what is being asked is something that is heavy and something that is difficult. But then the next verse describes it in a beautiful way. And for me, I'm very lucky with the parents that I've had, and I'm very blessed to have them, and I love them so very, very, very much. And this next verse softened my heart, and yeah, let's get into the verse before I kind of explain why it had such an effect on me.
واخفض لهما جناح الذل من الرحمة وقل رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا.
And lower for them the wing, and this is a metaphor, lower for them the wing of humility. So be humble towards them. And in that is a very powerful statement. And yeah, the first thing that comes to my mind is how my uncle revered our grandfather. And my uncle had an interesting life, and he traveled to the States, and then he came back, and he tried to set himself up, and then he came back, and he kind of lost himself, and then he sort of started working with his father, my grandpa. And through that process, he gained an extreme humility to his father. And it was strange for me to see a grown man look at his father and say, listen, I don't agree with you, but I'm going to respect you, and I'm going to do what you say because I should be humble, and I should accept your guidance, and I should accept your word. And there was some great reverence with this act of giving up your ego in order to do what your dad says, even if you disagree with him. And there was something so beautiful about it, and there was something so, irreverent is the best word that I can describe it. So being humble towards your parents, even when you disagree with them, is a difficult thing. Being humble to anybody when you think that they're wrong is difficult. And the Quran is not asking us to do this of anybody in general, but just specifically the parents. And then it says, out of mercy, this, like being merciful towards them is the motivation for being humble, for saying, you know what, I respect you, and I put you above you. And I can tell you, I have failed at this with my own father, for example. I have a very big ego. Surprise, surprise, surprise. And I struggle to be humble towards my dad and listen to what he says. And I can do this a lot better. And I definitely will do my best to try and do this better moving forward. And it says here, it's a bit of a prayer. It says, say, my Lord, have mercy upon them both, as they brought me up when I was small. And this carries a lot of weight for me specifically. And yeah, I'm also lucky that I had two parents that were there and did their best that they could. And obviously, they could have done better, and everyone makes mistakes. Of course, I hold my mom as like the highest regard of how a human can behave, because she was absolutely phenomenal. And my dad did the best that he could, and he raised us fantastically as well. Like, it's not that my dad was let's not get into the psychology of my family, but there's just something about raising us when we're small, and there's just like there's some power in family, right? There's power in parents. There's power in them taking care of you when you couldn't take care of yourself, when you didn't understand the world, when nothing made sense. And it just has this profound effect on me of like the respect that I have for them and the appreciation that I have for them, and that, you know what, even if they didn't do it in the best way, or they didn't deal with their own issues, they did, for me, in my case, they did a fantastic job, and I don't tell them that they did this enough. And I am so grateful. And it's kind of like this appreciation that we sometimes take for granted, and it's very easy to get wrapped up in your own life and wrapped up in your own perspective. and specifically, like, I live in the West, right? In the East, in the Middle East, and in the East, we tend to have a bit more focus on the parents, and a bit more focus on society, and family is a bit more importance. Whereas in the West, I feel like it's a bit more of an individual structure. That's to say, we're painting with broad brushes. There's a lot of people in the West that revere their parents and take care of them and take care of them well. But yeah, thinking back to my childhood, it's kind of like I I could spend a lifetime taking care of my parents, and I will never be able to repay them fully for what they did to raise me and to make sure that I survived. And the fact that we are all alive today is a testament to our parents. Obviously, there are exceptions to every case. Obviously, some people did not have parents or they were abandoned, but somebody raised you. And it's that who we're talking about. Those are your parents that we are referring to in this case. The people that raised you. And if we all are here and talking and alive, then somebody fed us, somebody took care of us, and we survived. And it is to those people that we owe a debt of gratitude. And the Quran, again, the antithesis of arrogance is being humble. The opposite of being arrogant is being humble. And specifically, the Quran is saying, be humble towards your parents out of mercy. And even if you had a rough relationship with your parents, it's not saying, be merciful to your parents, be humble towards them because, they were good to you. It's saying be merciful to them because they raised you. And they did the best that they could in those given situations. And I'm just ever grateful. It's just it moves me emotionally, and it's so powerful, and I'm so happy, and I'm so grateful. And the Quran, honestly, is beautifully kind sometimes, and in that is a lot of wisdom. Yeah, so let me say it because this is a prayer. Rabbi irhamhuma kama rabbiyani صغيرا. Rabbi irhamhuma kama rabbiyani صغيرا. God, please be merciful to them as they raised me when I was young. Alhamdulillah, subhanallah.
ربكم أعلم بما في نفوسكم إن تكونوا صالحين فإنه كان للأوابين غفورا.
And there's that analogy of turning again. But it says, your Lord, your God, is most knowing about what is in yourselves. Which for me, I always talk about this, and specifically when it comes to disbelievers. And for me, you never know what's in a person's heart. A person may seem like a bad person, like a person who is mean or aggressive or not right. And you never know what's in their hearts and souls. And also vice versa. Someone might seem that I'm such a generous person, such a kind, but then what's inside them is a bit more rotten. And here it says God only knows. Well, God knows what is in your soul, what is within all of us. And it says, if you are righteous, if you do good, then indeed He is to those who oft turn, and the understanding is to Him, most forgiving. And again, it's that visual of like there seems to be two directions, towards God and away from God. And it's obviously a metaphorical turning, because it's not a physical direction that you're turning into. And that we're always looking for God to forgive us our sins. Which I also like about Christian cultures, right? Christian culture, a lot of the times, they're asking for forgiveness, and they're praying for forgiveness, and they're seeking forgiveness. And I feel like if you're trying to do that, you are definitely on the right path. And I find it beautiful, and I find it unifying. I'm sure the Jews do it as well. I'm not excluding the Jews. I just don't know that much about the Jewish faith because it's not as publicized as the Christian faith and the Muslim faith. But yeah, I'm finding these verses quite peaceful and beautiful.
وآت ذا القربى حقه والمسكين وابن السبيل ولا تبذر تبذيرا.
Okay, and then it says, beyond your parents, it says, and give the relatives their right, their due, what they're owed. And this obviously is like, it's a big statement, but it is what the Quran calls to, and it calls to the taking care of the family unit and taking care of the relatives that you have. And the first person that comes to my mind is also my grandpa. My grandpa was kind of the beacon of support for our family, and if ever there was a model citizen, that would be my grandpa. He supported his family, including my dad, gratefully. There's just, yeah. But give relatives their due. Now, what is their due? What is right? What is fair? We kind of also get an example of how much you should give in a way in the next verse. But beyond the relatives, it talks about and the needy, the poor, and the wayfarer, the one who's traveling and who's stranded. So like it's consistently asking you to extend your support, and it's directing your support. First, be humble towards your parents, and obviously support your parents. But also the relatives are within this, and give them their due right. So support them wherever you can, and the needy and the wayfarer, the one who is traveling and is lost and in need of help. And do not spend wastefully. So this is kind of, it's interesting that it's talking about giving, but don't spend wastefully. Because like a big argument that a lot of people give is like, oh, if I give away my money, then how am I going to make money on my own? And that's a very, very good point. And this is a lesson that I need to learn. But I tend to, whenever the homeless ask me for something, I always ask them what they want for food, and I try to give them, even though I need to sort out my own finances, but that's neither here nor there. But actually, it is here or there, because the next couple of verses kind of talk about it. But first,
إن المبذرين كانوا إخوان الشياطين وكان الشيطان لربه كفورا.
now it talks about the wasteful. It says, indeed, the spendthrifts, the wasteful, are like the brothers of the devil, which saddens my heart, because there was a point where I was earning a lot of money and I didn't really care, and it was not like I was, being blatant and throwing my money away, but in kind of a way, I kind of was. I didn't really care. I didn't really have a purpose. I didn't really believe in a lot of things. I kind of lost my path, and I was wasteful. And I hate to hear the fact that the people who are wasteful are the brothers of the devil. I don't think it means specifically me in my case, but I don't think it doesn't mean that. And I think that I have a lot to learn about being critical and careful and watching how I spend. And to be fair, I have been very tight-pursed recently. I've not been wasteful in these years. I've been very careful, but my hand tends to be open when it comes to people in need, as much as possible. But anyway, let's talk about the wastefuls. The people, the spendthrifts, they are the brothers of the devil, which is an interesting analogy to make, an interesting perspective to make. And I feel like it's akin to being arrogant, but there's something about being a spendthrift and wasteful and throwing your money in crazy ways. And I feel like in it is a parable for capitalism, and we see this time and time again, but I always remember it from the passage from Jesus, that it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to get into the kingdom of heaven. And for me, there are the rich that invest their money into supports and governments and organizations to like give back to the world, and there are those who are considered spendthrifts and are really showing off. But yeah, it feels like it ties in the devilish concept of capitalism, of like, let me get as much money for me and then let me spend it on whatever I want because I earned it and I deserved it. And that's why that arrogance comes from, right? I get to spend my money however I feel. Who cares? And yeah, the fact that you are a spendthrift indicates that you are straying from the path. And وَكَانَ الشَّيْطَانُ, and now it talks about the devil himself. Here it says the brothers of the devils, and the devil, so I guess the head of the devils, so aka speaking for his tribe, is to his lord. It says here is ungrateful, kafuran, but it also is using the word of like disbeliever. And there's something about being ungrateful and disbelieving, and there is a connection in the two. And here we are talking about spending, and being a spendthrift is not valuing money and not valuing society and structure and the needy and the wayfarer and not investing your wealth into the world. And therein lies the lesson. Some people don't have a choice to be big spenders. What do you mean by that? Wa alaikum salam, Mohab. Thank you. Welcome to the channel. What do you mean some people don't have a choice to be a big spenders? I don't understand that comment.
وَإِمَّا تُعْرِضَنَّ عَنْهُمُ ابْتِغَاءَ رَحْمَةٍ مِّن رَّبِّكَ تَرْجُوهَا فَقُل لَّهُمْ قَوْلًا مَّيْسُورًا.
So you're saying some people are poor? Yeah. Well, this verse is not talking about the poor at all because they're not spendthrifts. This is not talking about the poor. This is talking about the people who have money and are spending it just like, yeah, look at me. No money, no pasta, no bling bling. Yeah, those are the masakin. Ooh. Bro. No! Okay. Alright, 17:28. Quran 17:28. Yeah, it's saying that no money, no pasta, no bling bling. Those are the needy that the Quran is saying that you should give to them. Right. This is what this. The previous verse. So the previous verse, and give the relatives their right, and the needy and the wayfarer. And here the needy, like it's talking about the poor. So if somebody, is homeless, is jobless, is disabled, this covers them. And the command from the Quran is to give to them. This is talking about the spendthrifts, those who have a lot of money, and and how they waste their money. And then what do we do to those spendthrifts? I think we just heard it, yeah. And if you turn away from them, seeking the mercy of your Lord, which you expect, then say to them a word that is gentle. So even those spendthrifts, even those that are arrogant, even those that are wasting away, and then the brothers of the devil, the Quran does not tell you to aggressively fight them or scream at them or yell at them, but tell them a kind word, even if you turn them down. But it's interesting that it says, no, turn away from them, not turn them down. Oh, okay, no, sorry. I see what the verse is talking about, turning away the needy. وَأَمَّا تَعْرِضَنَّ عَنْهُمْ, which is... Yeah, okay, so if it's talking about the needy and the qarba and ibn sabil. It's saying if you're not able to give to them, turn away. But then why is it talking about in al-mubthirin? Wouldn't that be those who you turn away from? But it makes more sense that this is talking about those who you need to give money to. That would make so much more sense. Because if you're turning away the needy or the poor, then say a word that is gentle, I think, is the key lesson. At least give them a kind word. At least be kind. And we do see this in other verses of the Quran. about how you treat the poor and the needy. And yeah, if you see them, don't like hate them, don't like be aggressive. Just tell them sorry. I wish you well. You know.
ولا تجعل يدك مغلولة إلى عنقك ولا تبسطها كل البسط فتقعد ملوما محسورا.
And this is a lesson for me. Well, it's also for all of us because it's in the Quran. Everyone could read the Quran. Everyone can learn the lesson. But I can learn the lesson from this specific phrase. It says, and do not make your hand chained, tight-fisted, or your hand chained to your neck. Like, oh no, I only give to myself. I don't give to anybody else. And the opposite, and do not extend it to its utmost reach so that you sit blameworthy and insolvent. And this is, definitely a lesson that I can learn, that you need to earn before you can give. And I have been a little bit failing in that regard. And I'm going to do my best to try and improve. And give only once you have to give. Lots of lessons, and that's kind of the whole point, and that's why we read the Quran. That's why we learn. You have to fill from your own cup before you fill somebody else's. But the opposite is don't keep a tight hand. And also, like, who's to say what's a tight hand? Who's to say what's an open hand? Here it says, so that you sit blameworthy and insolvent, and the translation, so that you will end up in poverty. Yeah, you can't give away everything. I'm also not giving away like large sums of money. I'm buying them food. I buy myself food. Like, it's okay. I'll be fine. It'll be fine. It'll be okay. I just have to take care of myself first. I will. I promise. Mom, if you're watching.
إن ربك يبسط الرزق لمن يشاء ويقدر إنه كان بعباده خبيرا بصيرا.
And this is why I kind of give away as much as possible, because I'm always like, God will give. God will give. All I have to do is just open. But all right, let's read it. Let's hear what it says. Indeed, your Lord, your God, extends the provision to whomever He wills. وَيَقْدِرْ. Yeah, so here they're saying abundant or limited because it's like it's talking about measure. I don't know what straightens mean. Like to make straight? That can't be right. I just sometimes these English words I don't understand. Yeah. Oh, characterized by poverty? Restricted in range or scope. Yeah, restricted in range or scope. Yaqdur. It's like it's about measure. It's about God extends His provisions to whomever He wills, and He does it with certain measure. And so I always believe that, if you have an open hand, God will have an open hand. Because I also believe that it's in another part of the Quran, that if you give with an open hand, that God will give you too. So I don't feel like I'm being completely irresponsible, and I'm trying to be as fair as possible. Like I bought tuna and bread. Like it's not. Anyway, sorry. I'm having an internal dialogue about how much if I should support her, if I shouldn't. Being a good person and figuring out how much to give and how much to take care of others is a challenge. But like the Quran also calls for you to use your reason, right? There's not one blanket statement of you should give or you shouldn't give, or give to whom you will. Be merciful and kind and humble to your parents. And then it says, indeed He is of His slaves, all aware and all seeing. And we had an interesting discussion. Bi'ibadih, some say servants, some say slaves. They're like, no, we worship, we're servants, we're not slaves. I genuinely believe that slave is an appropriate term. If you're talking about a human owning another human as a slave, bad. If we're talking about God and a human-slave relationship, good, because it's slightly different. It just means that we belong to God. That's kind of the idea of slave, and we're bound to God, and we're not able to be free of God in that sense. And even the disbelievers are not free of God, and this is what the Quran says time and time again. So I do like the word slave even though it has negative human connotations, but I am not limiting myself based off of the human negative connotations, but I mean it in a bit more of a overall sense.
ولا تقتلوا أولادكم خشية إملاق نحن نرزقهم وإياكم إن قتلهم كان خطأ كبيرا.
And as we've kind of talked about it, the infanticide that happened beforehand, it was pretty wild. That was in the Arabian, the Arabs, the pre-Islamic Arabs. But they said, and do not kill your children for fear of poverty. And again, this was something that we researched in the previous chapter, that certain tribes used to kill their children, used to kill the females of their children. If they had a female baby, they would kill her because they were fearing that they would have poverty. And this is saying directly, this is a command: don't do it, don't do this. And we have provided for you, we have provided for them and for you, which again ties into this concept of why I live my life and why I spend the way that I do, is that I believe that God holds all provisions. And I believe that I'm not being wasteful. I'm trying to be kind and generous to those in need, in the limited way that I can. And I believe that provisions are coming. I'm willing to do work, and I have work lined up soon. And I believe, and this is kind of the concept of generally when people think about, should we have children, should we not have children, what if poverty strikes us? And I believe that this is what it's saying, is that children are blessings in a way, and there is a provision for them, and there's a provision for you. And there's also a lot of lessons to be... There's this comment that I'm not going to read. There's also a lesson that I learned from Jesus rather than the Quran, that, for instance, on what he would say about stealing, is that he would say, don't steal because God will provide for you tomorrow. And if he provides for the birds, then he'll provide for you. And it really talks about the way that the universe works and how provisions work and how things are supposed to come and how blessings comes and how money comes. God really is the disposer of affairs and the disposer of wealth. And there's a reason for everything. But primarily, don't kill your children for fear of poverty, which sounds like a pretty straightforward thing for us. But at the time that this was revealed to the Prophet, this was kind of a pretty important thing for them not to do. And it says, and if in qatlahum, and their killing was a grave mistake, a heinous sin, khit'an kabira, a heinous sin, a huge sin, a very bad problem, this very terrible thing. Don't do this thing.
ولا تقربوا الزنا إنه كان فاحشة وساء سبيلا.
Now, okay, I mean, it's been a couple of verses. Why not get into a verse that is somewhat controversial? Okay. It says, and do not go near adultery. Indeed, it is an immorality, but like fahisha, it's a shameful deed. Fahisha is like a grave sin, like you've overstepped by far. And we've seen fahisha time and time again. Harama rabbi al-fawahish. This is like one of the big things that you shouldn't do. Wasa sabila, and this is such an evil way of existence. Now, a lot of Muslim society and Muslim culture and Muslim belief is that zina means any sexual intercourse outside of marriage. I don't know if you want me to respond to these comments, Mahab, because a serious comment. So my ex-wife committed a grave sin, but she believes in God, so she will go to heaven. Okay. All right. Very complex question. If a person commits zina but they believe in God, do they go in heaven? Tough question for me to answer, and I don't think me, in my limited understanding of the Quran and the rules, would be able to answer it. Basically, if you die a believer, you do get into heaven, as far as I understand it from the Quran, even if you sin and even if you make mistakes, even such as zina. However, if you truly believe in God, then you would seek repentance and you would seek forgiveness for that act if you truly were to believe. So it's a conditional statement. If you are to believe, then you have to seek repentance and you have to seek forgiveness and you have to pray for God's mercy. Yeah, you said she didn't have sex outside of marriage. She had sex with another man while still married. So, in all definitions of that word, she had sex with another man while she was married to somebody else. That is definitely 100% zina. Now, what I'm trying to talk about is that the scholars believe that and the Muslim community, the entire Muslim community, I'm not going out on a limb here, that zina is any sex outside of marriage. As in, if you're not married and you have sex, that is considered zina. I believe that is the understanding of the scholars. I believe that is an understanding of Muslims. Like I said, this is going to be a controversial point. I believe it means the word adultery, in the fact that you're breaking the vow of marriage to have sex with somebody else. So specifically having a covenant with somebody else, and I think it goes even beyond marriage. I think if you guys aren't married, but you are, for instance, in a relationship and you commit to each other, and then you have sex with somebody else, I believe that is still adultery, for example, in my perspective. But again, I'm not a scholar. I'm not a judge. But it is not the view that Muslims have. And I have to kind of clarify, Muslims believe that any sex that is not within the confines of marriage is considered zina. I don't share that view. I believe it's adultery. I believe it's breaking the vow of a relationship, breaking the vow of a marriage, and having sex with somebody else, with or without consent of husband or partner. Now we're going to get into super technical terms. I will talk to you, Mohab, later about what I think about open relationships and ideas. But for now, I'm just describing what I see in the Quran. And it says, do not go near adultery, which is a very interesting... Yeah, but I think it means don't do adultery. But I would also... assume that the guidance here is to avoid the temptation of cheating and to avoid putting yourself in a situation that can cause... Now, some people take this a bit too far, and some people say, like, you can't hang out with my wife because that's going to cause you to be tempted to sin. And I think it's up to the individual to be honest and reflect about what is approaching adultery and what is not approaching adultery. If you have any sort of feelings or something, then know that putting yourself in these type of situations would be dangerous. But adultery is a fahisha, an immorality, and an evil way of being. And it doesn't take... I don't think there's anybody in the world that can go, yeah, cheating is a good thing to do. But sex without the confines of marriage, now that's a bit more of a broader question. From the Quran, from the Muslim community perspective, sex without marriage is zina. That is not a view that I share, for example. But I also could be wrong. Like, I'm not saying that I know that this is not the case. I'm just telling you what I feel it is, based off of my understanding and based off of the word zina. It doesn't say... Yeah. Maybe I'm ignorant, so yeah, I apologize if I'm frustrating anyone viewing. But let's be honest, I've said a lot of things on this channel that a lot of Muslims would disagree with, so why stop now?
ولا تقتلوا النفس التي حرم الله إلا بالحق ومن قتل مظلوما فقد جعلنا لوليه سلطانا فلا يسرف في القتل إنه كان منصورا.
Okay, now this is another spicy little comment. It says, and do not kill a self, a soul, that which God has forbidden, except justly, with justice. So what is killing a soul with justice? We've seen in the Quran and in the Jewish faith, we also have this kind of perspective. An eye for an eye, a soul for a soul, a self for a self. And this is kind of like the tribal perspective. And obviously forgiveness is also recommended within those examples, is that, yeah, an eye for an eye, but if you want to kill, if you're going to kill someone, if they killed, if like that tribe killed of yours one person, then the rule is, at least justly by the Quran, is that you get to kill one of theirs. And that's not necessarily something that I think is right. I'm not saying that it's wrong. There might be something to it. There might be something to it that kind of the threat of the death penalty then stops people from killing. Maybe there's something to it. I don't know, and maybe my ignorance is showing here. But it's just saying don't kill someone unless it's right. And also, what's just can be, like as we've seen in Al-Tawbah, sometimes there is wars or fighting for survival, or there is like somebody invading you, then, you know, fighting back is within the confines of what is al-haq, what is just, what is right, what is legal right. But yeah, it's important that you don't kill someone except for what is just, and the Quran gives us a couple of examples of what is just. And it says, whoever kills wrongfully, then we have made for his heir an authority, but do not exceed in the killing. And here they're saying do not exceed in the retaliation. We have given their heirs, and here heirs is talking about awliya, which includes their closest relatives, both men and women. But do not exceed in retaliation. Again, an eye for an eye, a soul for a soul. For they are already supported by law. إِنَّهُ كَانَ مَنْصُورًا. For indeed he is already helped. But I feel like my limited understanding of this phrase is just not good enough. And there's a lot of things that I would like to understand better. Yeah.
ولا تقربوا مال اليتيم إلا بالتي هي أحسن حتى يبلغ أشده وأوفوا بالعهد إن العهد كان مسؤولا.
And do not come near the money of the orphans. So, for instance, orphans have an inheritance, and sometimes there's conditions that they have to reach a certain age before they get this inheritance. So here it's saying don't steal that money, don't take it from that money, except with what is better. So if you're going to improve their money, so here it says don't approach the money, don't come near them, don't touch the wealth of orphans unless you're going to make it better, enhance it and grow it. Until they reach maturity, and this is exactly what it's talking about, until the orphans reach maturity and they're entitled to their money, to their wealth. And fulfill the covenant, and honor your pledges. Indeed, indeed the covenant will be questioned. For surely you'll be accountable for them. You will be asked about your covenants, essentially, is what you will be questioned about the covenants. But it's interesting that it says the covenant will be إِنَّ الْعَهْدَ كَانَ مَسْئُولًا. Like the covenant will be asked about. Who's going to be asked? I assume it's going to be you and them and the person you owe. So uphold your covenants. And for me, that's why also zina, adultery, is about upholding covenants as well. But again, let's not diverge.
وأوفوا الكيل إذا كلتم وزنوا بالقسطاس المستقيم ذلك خير وأحسن تأويلا.
Salam, I've left comments before, but for once I'm watching live. Oh, hello, Len. Hi, thank you for joining me live. Welcome to the channel. So nice to have you here. I appreciate you. Thank you. Yeah, and it says and give the full measure, or wa'awfu is kind of like fulfill, right? It's not just give full, it's like fulfill the measure, like give what is owed. And when you measure, weigh the balance that is straight, and there used to be certain practices where you'd like add with balances or add weights, so like, oh, this is worth more money or gold or whatever. And it's saying be fair, which is one of the big it's not commandments, but it's kind of the advice of how to live your life, the wisdoms of the Quran. And that is good and best in result. That is good and best in at the end. Being fair is absolutely best in the end. And this is something that I realized at a very young age, that the reason why I'm honest and the reason why I do good is because it, like, logically, that's how a society needs to be run. And if anybody steals or takes more for themselves, then the scales aren't balanced, and then you have the poverty that you see today, the inequality, the horror. And you see some countries do this better than others, and some countries do this terrible. And yeah, being fair and being just is the Quranic recommendation.
ولا تقف ما ليس لك به علم إن السمع والبصر والفؤاد كل أولئك كان عنه مسؤولا.
Okay, and this is a little scary because anyway, it says, and do not pursue that which you do not have of any knowledge. Do not follow that which you have no sure knowledge of. And while I am terrified of this, because, you know, I obviously have some differing views from the Muslim community, and I don't want to be a person that is following something which that's not without accuracy, but I'm trying my utmost as I'm reading the Quran to hear exactly what are the words being used and follow the exact letter of the law that the Quran is prescribing. I'm trying my hardest, and I've been faced with a lot of information from a lot of different sources, and I don't follow anything except for that which I am certain about, which is the Quran. The Quran is the one thing I am absolutely certain of, and that is why I approach the Quran in the way that I do, and that's why I look at every word and try to understand exactly what it means and what is it saying and what I understand. And I also get that what I understand is different than what other people understand from the Quran, but it's not because I'm trying to create confusion. I'm trying to just follow the literal word. And so I hope this isn't a recommendation against me. But it says, indeed, hearing and seeing and the heart, hearing, seeing, and the heart, all of those will be about you questioned. And this is why I said the term, I feel like this is what it's talking about, because the heart is also an important tool for understanding what is right and what is wrong. There's what we hear, there's what we see, but there's also what we feel. And our hearts resonate with truth, and our hearts reject falsehood. And I feel like that's a very important lesson to understand. And I trust my heart, you know? And that's why I also believe in what I'm believing. And that's why I'm also reading the Quran in the way that I'm doing, because it instills my heart with peace and glory and reverence. And yeah, I'm a lot more liberal than a lot of Muslims for sure. But I'm genuinely reading with an open heart, with an open mind, trying to understand as best as I can. And the conclusions that I'm reaching are different than the Muslim community, but I still stand by them because my heart is telling me that. And yeah, maybe it's wrong, but my heart will be questioned, and my heart will speak to what I believe to be true, and that's the best that I can offer, you know.
ولا تمش في الأرض مرحا إنك لن تخرق الأرض ولن تبلغ الجبال طولا.
And in comes one of the main lessons of the Quran, and which all of these verses have kind of been talking about. I've been mentioning arrogance quite some time. It says, and do not walk in the earth with insolence, do not walk arrogantly. And it gives a very beautiful example. Indeed, you are not going to tear the earth, and you are never going to reach the mountains in height. You're never going to be that big, and you're never going to be that powerful that you're going to tear the earth. Which is a very interesting and powerful explanation. Even in the mightiest of mighty armies, they're not breaking the earth. They're destroying what's on the surface. But that's like, yeah, the perfect example of the U.S. bombing Iran and not reaching the nuclear facilities below the ground, which is, like, oh, great, big Papa USA. But you're still, with all that might and military might, you're still not penetrating the earth. That's the word. تخرق الأرض, penetrating the earth. It's very interesting. Yeah, and you're not going to be bigger than mountains. It's just a lesson of don't be arrogant. And this is also kind of like the whole lesson that we've been learning in these verses. Like, to be humble towards your parents. This is, everything is about constantly battling your ego. And therein lies why we're called Muslims. Therein lies why we're submitting to God. You always have to have this counterbalance to our ego and to submission. Mostly to God, but also to parents.
كل ذلك كان سيئه عند ربك مكروها.
Okay, here's an interesting phrase. All of the above that we've talked about a lot of lessons, about a lot of things that you shouldn't do, and all of that is it was evil near your Lord, and it was hated. So we've come up with the idea and the concept of, does God love us? The Christian faith tells you absolutely 100% God loves us all. From the Muslim perspective, it's always been God's mercy that is always applicable to us, and I've always wondered about God's love. And here we see an example of God's hate. So there are emotional descriptors that we can use about God, and if God hates things, then the logical conclusion is that he also loves things, right? But I'm curious to see more about what the Quran says from God loving. Obviously, also, I have my own perspective, and I have certain people in my life that remind me that God loves us. And I'm sure that's true, but I'm trying to follow the letter of the Quran, and I'm trying to approach it with an open mind as if I know nothing, and seeing what the Quran tells us. I really should add this as a disclaimer in the beginning of my videos, that I'm approaching this from the perspective of I know nothing.
ذلك مما أوحى إليك ربك من الحكمة ولا تجعل مع الله إلها آخر فتلقى في جهنم ملوما مدحورا.
And that is what we have revealed to you from your Lord of wisdom. And again, we understand that it is to the Prophet, because this is what we're talking about. What is being revealed is the verses that are ahead of us. The Prophet, peace be upon him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And from wisdom, the past couple of verses have been talking about wisdom, about things that you should do, about things that you shouldn't do, about what is good for you, how you shouldn't be arrogant, how you should be humble to your parents, how you should give to the needy. There's a lot of wisdom in the Quran. And yeah, Mohab brings up great points of saying, yeah, if I don't do this, I'm going to hell, or if I do this, I'm going to heaven. And a lot of what the Quran tells us to do is about wisdom and about doing things that are good for us, good for the community, good for the world, good for God, good for goodness sake, in a sense. And a lot of it's very good for us. And there's something super powerful about being humble, and there's something super powerful about taking care of your parents, and there's also power in prayer and power in fasting, and all of these things that the Quran is doing and telling us to do is also good for us. It's really good for us, and it's wise to understand that they're good for us, and that's what the Quran is saying, and that's the beauty of it, and that's why I love the Quran. Hello, Sophia Mac, welcome. Hi, welcome back to the channel. And do not make with God any god that is other, so that lest you be thrown in hell, blameworthy and abandoned. Yeah. Well, obviously, the biggest, one of the biggest sins that you can do, aside from non-believing, is believing in something other than God. My day's been good, Sophia Mac. How's your day been?
أفأصفاكم ربكم بالبنين واتخذ من الملائكة إناثا إنكم لتقولون قولا عظيما.
So I mentioned in a previous verse that the infanticide, and that verse was talking about, the daughters, being buried, and it was specifically about that and not about angels being girls. This is the example of where people believed that at the time of the prophet, some people believed that. Let's see what it says, and I'll kind of explain it a bit more. So then, has for your Lord chosen for you the sons, and he takes for the angels daughters. And this is kind of tied to the infanticide of like why they used to kind of give away the daughters, because they used to believe that, to God belong the female angels. وَاتَّخَذَ مِنَ الْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنَاثًا, and he takes from angels daughters. So, and I've also seen this being explained to say that angels are not females. And I do not have that answer. I don't think the Quran has specified whether angels can be females and males. I can imagine that they're males, but I don't have the answer. This is just talking about what those people were saying at the time of the Prophet, that God used to take females as angels. I sort of remember the story, but not that much. And that indeed they are saying a word that is grave. And again, here the Quran is not claiming this. The Quran is saying the people are claiming this, and they are saying a grave word, and this is a terrible thing. How could you say that God is taking the angels as females, as daughters? Oh, actually it says as females. Oh, this is a very interesting point, and I would love to bring it up with Safa, because her and I were talking about... they use the word daughters in Qawm Lut, banati, and here they're using females. Whereas when they're using inathan means females. But here they're translating into daughters instead of saying females, which is interesting. If you caught our heated discussion, Safa and I had a very wonderful throwdown on Surah Al-Hijr, about banati, which means my daughters. So here they're taking from angels females, not daughters. But I guess the time of the Prophet they were talking about daughters. I'm just telling you what the Quran is saying. The Quran is saying females, taking from the angels females. Okay.
ولقد صرفنا في هذا القرآن ليذكروا وما يزيدهم إلا نفورا.
And verily we have explained in this Quran so that they may take heed, they may be mindful, they may remember. And dhikr again is a very specific keyword sometimes in the Quran, but I think here there's talking about taking heed. But it's saying all of those people have been, we've explained this Quran so that they may take heed, but it only increases them in aversion and drives them further away. And there is constantly the example given that the Quran will attract the believers and repel the disbelievers. And some of my friends keep saying that they're disbelievers, yet they keep coming and they're keeping attracted to the Quran, which I find mighty suspicious. Wink, 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 hint, hint, nudge, nudge. You know who you are. I love you. They're coming towards the Quran, not moving away from the Quran. I'm saying that you're saying you're a disbeliever, but you're going to the Quran, just to be clear. Okay, last two verses, I believe. We have a few more.
قل لو كان معه آلهة كما يقولون إذا لابتغوا إلى ذي العرش سبيلا.
I'm supporting you. Want me to leave? No, I want you to stay. I love you and I appreciate you, and I love that you're drawn to the Quran despite the fact that you say that you're a disbeliever. I'm just saying it's suspicious in a good way, and I love that, and I'm grateful, and I'm thanking you. Anyway, it says, say, if there were with him, if there were with God other gods, as they say, then surely they would have sought the owner of the throne. They would have found a way to the owner of the throne. Which is kind of interesting, because there's a lot of the hidden gospels, the ones that didn't make the final cut of the Bible, the canonical gospels. I think that's the Gnostics, not the canonical gospels. The Gnostics have this weird kind of philosophy that the God that the Jews were praying to was the demiurge or something, and someone is taking God's throne. And so some people have started claiming this since, I don't know if it was since the moment or after the moment, probably from before the Quran, to be honest. So they do sometimes say that he's going for the throne. But yeah, I have yet to find a believer of a deity other than God that says they have created this world. And for me, that was the wonderful argument of, what did they create? You say they're your gods. What is the... Oh, he's the God of thunder. He's the God of water. He's the God of... Anyway. Say, if there were other gods, then surely they would have sought the owner of the throne away. Here it says they would have sought a way to challenge the Lord of the throne. And I think here it's saying they would have certainly sought a way to challenge the Lord of the throne. But I struggle with how we can argue that point. But what we should say, and what has been instructed to say, is
سبحانه وتعالى عما يقولون علوا كبيرا.
Glorified is he and exalted above what they say. Uluwan kabira. I feel like it's saying they're saying something that is like they're making such a haughty claim, and we've seen this word uluwan earlier in this chapter. They're making, glorified is he and exalted is he above what they say. It's such a grand thing for them to say, which is very interesting.
تسبح له السماوات السبع والأرض ومن فيهن وإن من شيء إلا يسبح بحمده ولكن لا تفقهون تسبيحهم إنه كان حليما غفورا.
Okay. تسبح له, the heavens. Here they're saying the seven heavens. Oh yeah, the seven heavens and the earth glorify to him. The seven heavens and the earth and whatever is in them glorify to him. Now, first of all, it's saying seven heavens. Now, what does that mean? 7 layers of heavens, 7 skies. There's some concept that it was like 7 parallel worlds. 7 planets. There's been a lot of theories about what 7 heavens means. And yeah, there were some stories about Al-Isra wal-Mi'raj, but we're not getting into it because those details are not in the Quran. It just says whatever's in the 7 heavens and whatever's in them in the 7 heavens and the earth, they glorify to God. They glorify Him. And there is not a thing except it glorifies His praise. But they do not understand. لا تفقهون. You do not understand تسبيحهم, their glorification. And in this is kind of a beautiful statement. And my mom described it in a wonderful way. She talked about the birds when they chirp, they're praising God. And I don't know, when she said that, I smiled. There was this kind of like beautiful irreverence that animals have towards God. And yeah, it says, here it says, there's not anything except it glorifies His praise, but you do not understand their glorification. So does that include the disbelievers, the devils, the jinn? Does it include inanimate objects, rocks? There's not a single thing that does not glorify His praises, but you simply cannot comprehend their glorification. And it kind of ties back into that we're all slaves of God, even those who are willing and those who are unwilling. And even in disbelief, even in arrogance, even in sin, that there's a way, that there is a form of it that is eventually belonging to God. And maybe in that is a form of glorification to God, but we don't understand. But the Quran is also telling us that we don't understand, so I don't really have to understand this. Indeed, He is ever forbearing and oft forgiving. That word has come, forbearing, quite a lot. Patient and restrained. Okay. And oft forgiving. There's something beautiful about everything glorifying God. There's something beautiful about it all belonging to Him. I don't know. Yeah, I don't understand it, but I feel it, if that makes sense.
وإذا قرأت القرآن جعلنا بينك وبين الذين لا يؤمنون بالآخرة حجابا مستورا.
This is a very interesting little phrase. And when you recite the Quran, we place between you and between those who do not believe in the hereafter a barrier that is hidden. Very, very interesting. So what does this mean? I have found that since I have started my spiritual journey and my discovery of the Quran and my reading of the Quran, that certain people have left my life. Three specific individuals. I can name them if you want. Very interesting. And here it says, when you profit, it does not mention profit. And I feel like this is applicable to humans, to all humans. And when you recite the Quran, we place between you and between those who do not believe in the hereafter a barrier that is hidden. We put a hidden barrier between you and those who do not believe in the hereafter. Yeah, interesting.
وجعلنا على قلوبهم أكنة أن يفقهوه وفي آذانهم وقرا وإذا ذكرت ربك في القرآن وحده ولوا على أدبارهم نفورا.
Again, Mohab, I feel like it's talking about you. And we have placed upon their hearts coverings, lest they understand it, that they cannot understand the Quran, and in their ears are, there's like, it says deafness. Yeah, and let's just keep it at that. And I feel like you understand the Quran, Mahab, to be honest. I don't feel like it. I discuss the Quran with you a lot. So by very virtue of the fact that you hear the Quran and your heart and your heart is open to at least talking about it, I think is an indication that you are not these people. But anyway, let's not complicate life. And when you mention your Lord and when you mention God in the Quran alone, they turn on their backs in aversion. Again, I don't feel like you're turning your back and averting from me, Mohab. Therefore, this is not talking about you. I mean, it's talking about you through exclusion. You are definitely not those people. You are listening to the Quran. All right, okay, I'm gonna stop. I think it's one more verse. A couple more verses.
نحن أعلم بما يستمعون به إذ يستمعون إليك وإذ هم نجوى إذ يقول الظالمون إن تتبعون إلا رجلا مسحورا.
And we know best about what they listen to. When they listen, I was reading the Arabic. When they listen to you, and when they are in private conversation, they say the wrongdoers that, nay, you are following except a man that is bewitched. When they listen to you, they're saying that they're following a man that's bewitched. We know best how they listen to your recitation and what they say privately when the wrongdoers say, you only follow a bewitched man.
انظر كيف ضربوا لك الأمثال فضلوا فلا يستطيعون سبيلا.
See how they put forth for you the examples, the phrases, the name. See how they call you names. See how they talk about you. They say that you're bewitched. They say that you're confused. They say that you're crazy. So they have gone astray. So they cannot. It's understood that they cannot find the way, but they can't do the right way. Yeah.
وقالوا أإذا كنا عظاما ورفاتا أإنا لمبعوثون خلقا جديدا.
And they say, then is it when that we are bones and crumbled particles and dust, then we will be surely resurrected as a new creation? Ha ha. And this is constantly the claim that the Quran is saying that the disbelievers do. They say, you think we'll come back after we're bone and dust? Which the answer is duh, yeah. But this is what they say mockingly, and the response is in tomorrow's episode. That's as far as we're going today. Yeah, it's been a bit of a long episode, but yeah, I love the Quran, and anybody that's watching this should love the Quran, because I don't know how you can listen to me for an hour and 15 minutes if you don't love the Quran. So thank you for watching me. I appreciate you. I love you. Sadaqallahu al-Ali al-Azim. I love the Quran. I love you. Get out of here. Ma salama. Bye.